Rhonda Abbott. I am here with Dr. Antonio DeCarli. He is a gastroenterologist. He works at Birdfish, and we are interviewing him today for our pathophysiology class. What is gluten sensitivity?
Gluten sensitivity, celiac disease, otherwise known as celiac disease, is gluten enteropathy, gluten sensitivity. There's gluten insensitive people. They've actually expounded recently, as you probably know. Now you might not be celiac, have celiac disease, but you might be gluten sensitive, or so on. Many definitions from there, but basically we're talking about celiac disease, which was a diagnosis that was made in the 1800s by a physician who noted that when people ate bread, they had diarrhea. And so now we just call it gluten sensitivity because gluten is found in many foods. And essentially what gluten sensitivity is the body is reacting to a foreign object, right? Gluten. And it's going onto the small intestines where you have your absorption of all your nutrients. And the body's attacking it, causing destruction of the absorptive surface of the intestines, or the villi. And that's essentially what celiac is. It's destruction of the absorptive fingers, the villi, of the small intestines. Right? We don't have them in the colon or the stomach, so it's really only the small intestines.
What are the symptoms?
Most of the time, when patients come in symptoms, I think the major symptom is diarrhea, and it's incessant diarrhea. 5-10 times a day. Most of the time it's large volume, actually, too, and there's a difference. Most people will say, well, how do you know it's small and large? You'll know the small amounts of diarrhea versus having a massive amount of diarrhea. It's mostly large volume diarrhea, multiple times a day, brown liquid stool, right? Diarrhea is liquid, not soft. Can be mixed with soft stool, but mostly it's liquid. That is the main symptom that I have patients come into. They all also come in with weight loss because they can't absorb their food, or malabsorption. They may have anemia. A lot of them have bloating sensation, bloating distension of the belly, and nausea. And those are typically the symptoms that we see. They can also be associated with anemia, B12 deficiency, bone loss. We'll get into that later, but that's essentially what you see. Is diarrhea, bloating, weight loss. Or, you could say weight loss equals malabsorption. Could be a form of malabsorption.
What are the risk factors? Is there any risk factors? Is it hereditary?
Yes, it's hereditary. So what they found is celiac rides on a gene locus, the HLA-DQ2 and DQ8. And they're well, the DQ2 and DQ8 are associated with many other diseases, diabetes, some autoimmune, thyroid problems. So the DQ2, DQ8's locus is very close to each other. It actually gets very genetically detailed. I enjoy genetics, fortunately for me. Right? But it gets very detailed because then it breaks down the HLA, DQ2, and 8 to fractions of the peptide. Anyways, so it's genetic, and so it runs in families. Both, but it's found in mostly white Northern Europeans. They used to think it was not that common. It's about 10-15 years ago, prior to my residency. So it wasn't that common, 1 in 100,000, 1 in 1,000. Now it's, the estimated rate is actually pretty common. It's anywhere from 1 in 100 to 1 in 250. And they get such a wide variation because it is underdiagnosed, basically, but it probably is even lower than that. Could be lower than that. Now, it gets tricky because when you talk about 1 in 100, geez, that means that, if I have 200 people in the hospital, 2 people have celiac. Now, yeah, I get that, but the bottom line is there's variations to your genetic susceptibility, and you don't know how bad your celiac's going to be. There can be celiac that can be very mild, and there can be celiac that's asymptomatic. You may just have iron deficiency anemia. You may just have elevation in liver enzymes. No other symptoms at all, and you're fine. You're out running a marathon, so it doesn't have to be that bad. So that's why, if you went to a general physician and I have elevated LFTs, well, he's not going to check your celiac, or she's not going to check your celiac. Why would you?
What is the diagnostic study of choice?
The diagnostic study of choice, the gold standard, right? And we love to have gold standards in medicine. It makes it easier to remember. The gold standard used to be duodenal biopsy. So you go down with an upper endoscope down into the stomach and pass into the small intestines, right? There's 3 parts of small intestines: the duodenum, jejunum, and then the ileum. And the duodenum is the first part of the small intestines, right after the stomach. And typically, by biopsying that a few times in different areas, it could give you the diagnosis of celiac. That used to be the gold standard. Oh, you should definitely do that. But that fell by the wayside, and the reason it fell by the wayside is because celiac is a patchy disease. And I say patchy, it will occur from 0, so if it's 12 feet long, small intestines are 12 feet long, it'll occur at 11 feet. It'll occur at like 10 inches, and then 40 inches, and then 47 inches. There's no rhyme or reason to where it pops up in your small intestine. It is not your whole intestines. Your whole intestines is wiped out. You would literally die. You would expire if you had a complete blunting of your ability. That doesn't happen. So it can get bad, but it doesn't have a complete blunting. So it used to be that they used to miss it all the time because they wouldn't get the spots that were actually have celiac in it. So what they did was they really found, well, what's the problem? Well, there's an antibody. If you have gluten, gliadin, which is one of the epitopes of gluten, it goes into the small intestines, and the best way I can explain it is the gliadin is a foreign body, as is everything you eat, right? But gliadin, for some reason, is reactive to the body in genetically susceptible individuals. So these people who are genetically susceptible, when gliadin hits the small bowel, the bowel sees it as, oh my goodness, this is bad. It's like a napalm. It's like a bomb going to get ready to blow up. We have to get rid of it. And so they go attack, the body goes to attack that area where the gluten has touched, the gliadin has touched. And so how do you kill these things? Well, you don't really kill it. You actually end up killing yourself. Right? So the T cells go to that area and they start throwing down acid and hyaluronidase or whatever. Hyaluronidase is not that, but mast cell destruction, and it gives off to try to kill the gliadin, but it's really not killing it. It's actually, you're hurting yourself. You're wiping off your small intestinal villi. It's like any autoimmune disease, really. Autoimmune means against the body. Autoimmune hepatitis. Lupus is autoimmune. There's hundreds of them, right? So it's the body attacking itself for why we can't.
What is the treatment for celiac disease?
Celiac disease would obviously be a celiac-free diet, a gluten-free diet. Not easy to do. Reality. Not easy to do. You can go to Publix, you can go to your gluten-free section, which is great, and I applaud them for that. It is rather expensive, and it is limited. And if you haven't had gluten-free bread yet, you've got to try it. No, I'm not kidding.
Eat your cookie.
Go. So I typically follow it twice a year. You do serologies once a year. That's how I would do it. You don't have to do overkill. And patients will miss. That's going to happen. I just can't imagine doing it. So it's very difficult.